Hello, hello, and welcome to May. It's May 2nd, and I've already finished my first book. I actually finished it yesterday, so I'm already feeling better about May than I did about April. Reading in April was just so weird, but reading in May has started out better. You can see I've got a stack of things I'm working on here, but I finished and loved Funny Story by Emily Henry, and nobody is more surprised than me about how much I loved this book, because I had, like I said in my TBR, I had sworn off Emily Henry. I was not going to read another Emily Henry ever in my life. But then Jennifer Brooks put it on her 24 and 24, and I was like, okay, I'm tipping my toe into everything on that list this year. I haven't finished most of it, to be quite honest. I haven't finished most of them. I've DNF'd almost all of them, but I have read a solid 50-ish pages in every single one. Some of them have been great hits. Once Upon a Broken Heart was a hit. Funny Story. Emily Henry, Funny Story. Like, I never cease to amaze myself. I can't believe how much I loved this book. For those of you wondering, it is just like all Emily Henry. It is incredibly steamy. It's, you can read around it if you prefer. I think that in this particular instance, the story is worth it if you have to do some, or you want to do some reading gymnastics, if that is not your thing. The story itself is very solid. The characters are so lovable. The banter on point. It's just so good. It does the same thing that all of Emily Henry's books do, that in every single other book I kind of despise. It starts out all fun and happy, joy. You know, when a horror movie starts and like the family is moving into the new house and everything's all bright and sunny and there's like a kind of white glowish filter on everything. Everything is just sparkly and joyful and wonderful. And then about 30 minutes into the movie, bam, it's all dark and gray and filmed at night. That is what Emily Henry books do. It's all happy, flirtatious, confident. There's been some heartbreak, some separations, some unmooring, some tower falling, but then it just switches, like almost instantaneously, like mid-book, mid-chapter, it goes from confident and flirty to morose and dark and depressed, and every character feels like they're going to be abandoned every single time. This book was no different, but for whatever reason, for this story, it worked. I really think, hi Lola, hello love bug, hello, did you have your brekkies and was it delicious? I really think that it was the characters in this one. I loved the characters. It helped a lot. Yeah, thank you, babe. It helped a lot that the main character is a librarian. She's a children's librarian, and a lot of the side characters come from a library. I really believed and loved the kind of internal angst that's going on for both of these characters. It did feel a little insta-lovey, which was not my fave, but also these are two vulnerable people kind of thrown together. And so it also kind of made sense. They have historical knowledge of each other. They actually carry secrets about the other because their significant others their former significant lovers are now in a relationship together, but they knew each other and grew up together. So they have history, and those former significant others told them things about the other person. Does that make sense? I can't remember their names, so I can't use their names. Peter and Petra are the significant others, I think. And then there's Miles and our narrator, who I can't remember her name. I listened to this. I didn't purchase it because I was like, I'm not going to finish it. Why would I buy it? Now I need to go and buy a copy of it because it will definitely be a reread at some point. It was just wonderful. I was laughing out loud. I was rooting for them. It's such an awkward setup. It's such a socially awkward setup. You have these lifelong friends, Peter and Petra, and Peter is going to get married to our female protagonist, but he dumps her last minute when Petra suddenly says, actually, Peter, I love you. So she dumps Miles, and Peter dumps our person. Petra and Peter go off together. They're going to move into Peter and the protagonist's house. So she has to find somewhere else to live. And so she moves into Petra's place, like spot, in Miles's apartment. She moves into actually Petra's closet in Miles's apartment because she doesn't have anywhere else to go. She's kind of been uprooted. She's moved for this person. Never a good idea, friends. Never a good idea. She's moved for this person. So she doesn't really have her own social circle. She just has friends that belonged to him. And yeah, and Miles and her forced proximity, shared heartbreak, former knowledge of each other, they end up falling in love. And it's such a nice little journey as they fall in love. It feels fast, very fast, but it also feels plausible. Plausible is a good word. It's very well done. Emily Henry did a great job, and the thing that annoys me is still present. It still goes from happy, cute, feisty, flirtatious to these are all of my problems bubbling up to the surface, every single one all at once in this huge cauldron of please don't abandon me. Every time, every character. But it worked with this story and these particular characters. Funny Story is great, and it ends well. I like the way that it ended. I liked how it doesn't just end abruptly. It kind of takes you a little bit into the future, so you can imagine how they're doing, where their lives will go. It's not like an epilogue. It's not like a 4 years later. It's just kind of like a panoramic view of happily ever after. So it's lovely. It was really lovely. Highly recommend. I'm giving it 5 stars. Where I rate things, I'm rating it 5 stars. And I might have to read Book Lovers now. I don't know. A friend commented on my Bookstagram post about it that have you read Book Lovers? And I was like, maybe I should just leave it here. Maybe this should be my last Emily Henry. It's the only one I've ever liked. Maybe I should just leave it on a high. So I don't know. Maybe I'll pick up the next one. Maybe I'll pick up Book Lovers. I'm thinking probably not. I'm thinking I'm going to leave it at Funny Story and love it. And love it. I do need to buy a copy of Funny Story now, though. So that's added to my list. But May is off to a great start. It's more romance. I've read so much romance this year. I don't generally read this much romance. If you've just found me this year, I am reading very differently from how I often read. It feels good. I'm enjoying myself, but a lot more fantasy and a lot more romance this year. And I guess that's just the place I'm at. I need to get to work. So I am going to put this little poochkin somewhere safe. And then there's no kids at work, so I really just kind of wander around. Thank you. I love you too. I really just kind of wander around and take care of little odd jobs that need taking care of that I generally can't do when kids are around, and read a little bit. And I've graded everything already. I've done all the things. And there's 2 more days left in this week. Tomorrow will be better though. Tomorrow is the day that everybody gets back from their immersive trips. And I will get to see, they do a little immersive museum rotation thing where you walk around and see all the things they learned and did. So that will be very fun. Although the trip that I'm really looking forward to coming back is, I say I have to get to work. Now let me tell you this really long story. The trip, it's not really long, it's not. The trip that I really am excited to see when they get back is my 8th graders that went to France. I have a group, there was a French trip, France and Spain. And they went, and I have one student, I don't know if I've told this story on another video or not, but I have one student who wrote their mysterious research paper. So they have to write a research paper in writing with me where they research an unsolved mystery from history, and then using their resources come up with a plausible explanation for what happened. And this particular student researched the time slip in Versailles and the two women in the turn of the century, or late 1800s, early 1900s, two English women who went to Versailles and believed that they had participated in a time slip. They believed so heartily that they lost their standing in society because they would not back down. They wrote a book about it and tried to recreate it, and people interviewed them, and psychologists tried to figure them out, and people kind of decided it was a shared delusion. But my student decided that time slips are real, and that while she's at Versailles on this trip, she's going to try and make it happen, and that she is going to try and snap a phone picture of Marie Antoinette for me. So we'll see. I'm really excited to see a photograph of Marie Antoinette. Believe me, if anybody can make it happen, it's this student. I do have to go to work now, and she is not going to be pleased. But yeah, I'll see you later. See her back there. Silly goose. It is very early on a Saturday morning, and I just need to check in. I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about that I've read. One I finished last night, and it really just, it just got me. It just got me. But before that, I will say that, yay, better late than never, a whole month late, I did finish reading Aurora Leigh by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. This is, contrary to my experience of it taking an extra month, this is very readable. This is it's like a novel in verse, but it's from the Victorian era, and so it is just like a really extended poem. It tells the story of a girl. I just looked on the back to see what the name of the girl is. It's the name of the poem, Aurora Leigh. So it's the story of Aurora Leigh, and I think what I really liked about this was not necessarily the poetry, because I think that Elizabeth Barrett Browning and I just don't really mesh as far as poetry goes. I think I said in my, what would it have been, April TBR, that I've only ever read Sonnets to the Portuguese by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and I have taught some of her poems, especially, of course, How Do I Love Thee? How do I love thee? Let me count the ways I love thee. You know it. I have only ever taught a handful of her poems and read Sonnets to the Portuguese, and that is because I don't really like her poetry all that much. I know she's a classic poetess, and I think that her life was very interesting. Her romance was very interesting, but her poetry is very controlled and very clinical. There is underlying elements of passion, but it's very Victorian, and it's not me. I mean, I think my decorating style is Victorian. Maybe if I had been born in any other century, the Victorian period would have been my time. But poetry-wise, I don't have a favorite Victorian poet, unless you count Emily Bronte, but really I just love Emily Bronte. So no matter what she writes, I'm going to love it. What I liked about this was that although it is controlled, although it is extremely structured, it's not as tight-laced as sonnets. There is a little bit more freedom and a little bit more air, a little bit more breath. And she does such a good job in this of character development, which is an amazing thing to say about poetry and writing in verse. I would compare her character development in this, the skill with which she does that, to Elizabeth Acevedo's The Poet X, where she is able and capable of giving just one or two descriptors that completely bring to life an individual on the page in a line. A line can completely give you like just this visual in your head of this person. So yeah, sad, interesting, satirical, tackling the big questions, art, deity, creativity, females' place in society. It's all in here. It's very well done, very readable. Glad I read it. Will probably never read it again. Yeah. Now, this book that I'm about to show you took me by storm. I ordered it from Book of the Month. It arrived on Thursday. I opened it on Thursday. I think it arrived on Wednesday. I opened the box on Thursday and read the first 70 pages and then sat down to read, quote unquote, just a little bit last night and finished the whole thing because I couldn't stop. I thought I would like this book, but I did not know I would love this book. And that is The Ministry of Time, a debut novel by Kalian, not sure how to say that gorgeous name, Bradley. This is my kind of book. This is my kind of book. It is undefinable, really. It is science fiction, time travel, historical, literary, romance, dystopian. It is all the things equally, seamlessly, effortlessly. Basic premise. There's a woman who works for the British government. It's the future, so it's not necessarily the British government as we have it now. She works in language translation. She's half Cambodian, and but she passes for white, for just British most of the time. Her mother is Cambodian, and most people don't know that about her. She is internally interviewing for a different position within the newly developed arm of the government, the Ministry of Time. She doesn't necessarily know exactly what she is applying for, though. Like, she thinks she's applying to work with immigrants and refugees. And when she asks in the early pages in the interview scenes, in the process, she asks where the immigrants will be coming from that she'll be working with, because she's interviewing to be what is called a bridge. So a person who partners with a specific immigrant or immigrant family and helps them acclimate to life in England. Kind of like a caseworker. When she asks where the people will be coming from, she's told not a place. She's told that they're coming from history, which, I mean, obviously by that time she's getting the job because highly classified information. She takes the position. She gets assigned Admiral Gore. I think he's Admiral. Graham Gore is his name. Commander Graham Gore. He's from the 1847 expedition. He's a real person. He's a real person from history. He has been purposefully scooped up because he's a person from history. They know his death date. They know that removing him just moments, like going back in time to get him to pull him forward in time for this experiment, will not play with history. So this book is not about playing with history. In fact, many, many times the main character asks if this thing will affect other things, or can they go back and kill baby Hitler, like that sort of thing. And that's a direct quote, by the way. She's told again and again and again, like, you don't understand. You don't understand how time works, how time travel works. You don't understand history. You can't really change history. We're dealing with people. People aren't history, which is such a different take from most time travel books. And I'm holding a lot back because I don't want to give you any spoilers. I didn't have any spoilers going into this, and I don't think you should either. So if you're watching this, I am going to read some of my favorite quotes, which may be spoilery. You may want to skip forward if you don't mind, or if they're not that spoilery in actuality, because they'll be lacking context. I would recommend that you don't watch anybody's reviews, don't read Goodreads reviews, don't do any of that. Don't let any of that come into your mind. Just experience this book as it is, because the writing is exquisite. The story is fun and a little bit plot holy, but it doesn't matter, because all of that is like background noise for the wisdom that is in this book, for the emotional wisdom, the social wisdom, the placing yourself and your experience within the context of something much larger wisdom. That's an actual category of wisdom. I've just made it up. It is just the most beautiful thing. Honestly, it's just the most beautiful thing. There is a romance. Again, that's not the main feature of this book, but it is a catalyst for a lot of things. There are huge, fun, like, shifts in the storyline, things that I did not see coming. Now, I may not have seen things coming because I was reading at a pace. I was reading very quickly and loving this experience, like just the experience of this book. But I will read some things. This author and her like wordsmithery is phenomenal. I mean, this is going to be an auto by author for me. I don't know what else she's going to come up with, because this is such a weird concept and product. Like, the concept is uncategorical, kind of, and the writing is uncategorical. It is so pristine, this writing. Short, sparse, beautiful, freaking deep. It's so deep. My reading experience with it, and I know that this is what I'm about to say, the book I'm about to name is a bit of a Marmite book. Like, people love it or they hate it. Very few people are like meh about it. I loved it. It reminded me a little bit of The Cartographers. I loved The Cartographers. It reminded me a little bit of 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. It's not either of those books. It's not either of those books in any way, shape, or form. No, it's not either of those books. The story is completely different. The writing is completely different. But the feeling I had while reading it, the experience I had within it, is very much the same. So there's also, though, a romance. And I don't know, this is my year of the romance. I just keep reading romance. I can't get enough romance. I don't know what it is. It's not my usual reading style. It's not my usual go-to. I'm not reading like every romance that crosses my path, but the books that I seem to be really enjoying and connecting with so far this year, it's the romance. But it's not just like the falling in love and it's not just the falling in love and the ooh little hearts, it's the depth underneath it all. So she's the bridge for this guy, for Graham Gore. And it's like 200 pages of, he's a Victorian, right? So he moves very slowly. In fact, she doesn't even know he's making moves towards her. At one point, they almost die, they almost get killed. And she kisses him, and he freaks out and runs away, goes locks himself in his room. And so she feels like rejected, and she feels embarrassed and shamed, only for it to, like, when he comes out of his room, because they live in the same place, because she's his bridge, which there is a bit of a power issue there. Like, there's an inequity of power, which is a little cringy, but because all of these people, so there's a whole group of people from different countries and different time periods that all have different bridges that are trying to help them at the same time, because this is an organized experiment. And all of these people who have come from these different time periods, they're a little bit vulnerable. They're a lot vulnerable. They're a little bit childlike. And yet they are all full-grown adults with full-grown adult life experiences, and they just are missing, like, pop culture references. They don't know, like, he's never ridden a bike. He doesn't understand music or women's liberation, or, you know, like, just things like that. And the author does a really great job of being like, you know, he died 20 years before ketchup or whatever. Like, she places in context constantly these gentle little reminders of, he is from here. He doesn't know all of this. You do, right? And so she's really good at establishing this, wow, he's just like us, and whoa, he's a totally different entity feeling, without it being in your face. She is a show, not tell author, and it's so beautifully done. It is a thing of beauty. Like, people should be studying her craft, because wow, she's really great. Plotting, she needs a little more time. She needs a little more support. But again, plotting is, like, so far in the background in comparison to the experience of the social emotional wisdom and the writing in this book. It's just phenomenal. So anyway, courting. He comes out of the room. She's feeling shamed. She confronts him. And he's like, she's like, what do you want? What do you want? Because here I was giving myself to you. Like, it was obvious what I wanted. And now you're asking me what I wanted, and I thought it was obvious, like, I kissed you. And he's like, well, I've been courting you. And she has no idea. He's been courting her because he doesn't know, like, the social norms. So he's trying to operate like he's in the Victorian period, but in the Victorian period, he would have provided her with things that she couldn't provide for herself. And he's confused, and he doesn't know how to move forward because she has everything already. Like, she is her own independent woman, and he doesn't know where he fits in her life. And so what he's been doing to try to quote unquote court her is cook all the meals. It's so beautiful. It really is. It's just so beautiful. It's so thoughtfully done, so realistic, and so out there at the same time. It's just, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. There is a point where, before they've gotten together, before the courting part, she gets Christmas off. So she goes home to spend Christmas with her family, and all the bridges go home to spend Christmas with their families, and all of the people, all the experiment people from different time periods are sent to a little seaside town to have their own celebration. And he calls her. He's called her to check in on Christmas Day. He calls to make sure she's still alive. He sends her this text message. He's a Victorian, okay? He calls her little cat, horrid cat. He has all these little feline nicknames for her. So he sends her this text message. Again, this may be spoilers. I really just want to save this so that I remember, like, my response to this book. And if you don't mind spoilers, listen up. But he sends her this text message. This is before, like, they're just Bridge and time traveler. They're separated for the first time since they've known each other. So it's been like 6 or 7 months since they've known each other. And they're separated for the first time for about a week. They're called expats. That's what they're called, the time travelers. So the expats texted me over Christmas break. And this is the one that Graham sent to her. Dear horrid cat, being unused to and out of practice with this machine, he's talking about the phone, I must make this brief. We are having a splendid, if somewhat pagan, time. I have strong-armed the company into attending the midnight service this evening. 65, they call each other by the years, the last two digits of the year they were pulled from. So this is 1765. 65 cannot and will not behave. 16, that's 1916. 16 and I have taken over the cooking of the trimmings, but we dare not attempt the bird. I will telephone you on Christmas Day to ensure you are in one piece. This missive took me half an hour to write. Believe me to be your affectionate friend, G.G. To him, that's like this huge declaration of love. And the next day they have their little conversation, and it's so sweet. I won't read the whole thing to you, but at one point, like I just want to read it because I just want you to get the feel of how gently this romance develops. It just is so tender and precious and not bold, but also bold. Because remember who he is. Sorry about my throat. I'm still dealing with allergies, but remember who he is. So he calls, happy Christmas, blah, blah, blah. They're talking. They have little inside jokes. She has a bag that's shaped like a purse that's shaped like a chicken. They talk about her chicken bag, all these things. And then there's a pause. He asks her what her family's like and what being home is like. She says, we're close to a forest, about a mile from a lovely lake I used to paddle in during the summer. I've been hissed at by several generations of geese. There were a few seconds of silence on the other end, and I thought he had lost the connection until he said, I'm smiling. She had already told him over the phone that she was smiling, so he says, I'm smiling too. Oh, my ears aren't quite as good as yours. I can't hear it. I will endeavor to smile louder, he broke off and huffed softly down the phone, a noise between a sigh and a laugh. You know, when you are out of sight, I fear I've imagined you, and my heart's beat skittered. He coughed unnaturally and seemed to reconsider his train of thought. Tell me what it was like growing up there. It's just so little and so much all at the same time. It is a thing of beauty. The whole interaction is the thing that I love, but I can't read you the whole interaction because then I'd just be reading you the whole book. Hang on. An example of this writing. Holding me in his arms the way that poems hold clauses. I've never heard anybody use that kind of like simile before. If you ever fall in love, you'll be a person who was in love for the rest of your life. I hadn't used my bike since we'd arrived at the new safe house, and I was electrified by the sense of freedom it gave me, movement in my chosen direction from the happy effort of my body. After a half hour of cycling down the bike superhighway, the city receded and the streets darkened. Soon we were having to pick our way along barely lit residential roads where the houses were squat and sleeping. Then we came to the dark blue lanes, grasped by the trees, the ground underfoot rustic with pebbles. My bike light bounced off his back. Where are we going? I called to him. We'll come to a large field very soon. When we reached the field, it was a line of darkness scrawled on the deeper darkness. We stumped our bikes over the wet, breathless earth. There, he said. Stars. I blinked at him and then I looked up. It was true. Away from the grubby muslin of London's light pollution in the fresh March night, the sky was full of stars. I turned back to him. As I adjusted to the dark, I could see he was staring upward. He was a sailor. He was a sailor in the 1800s. I can't imagine exactly without a sextant, he said. I can't imagine it exactly without a sextant, he said, but I wanted to be able to orient myself so that in the event of London flooding, when the ice caps melt, you can sail to safer waters, so that I will know where I was when I met you. I had always thought of joy as a shouting, flamboyant thing that tossed breath into the sky like a ball. Instead, it robbed me of my speech and my air. I was pinned in place by joy, and I didn't know what to do. I'm going to read that again. I had always thought of joy. It makes me cry. I had always thought of joy as a shouting, flamboyant thing that tossed breath into the sky like a ball. Instead, it robbed me of my speech and my air. I was pinned in place by joy, and I didn't know what to do. I don't know why it makes me cry. It's just beautiful. Like, her writing does this to me. Like, that's why I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop reading it last night. And then, the end of this book. The end. Oh my word, the end. I can't tell you a thing, but I do want to read you a bit. You know how The Great Gatsby has like one of those endings that people read and kind of misunderstand, but it outlives the rest of the book, really. So we beat on, it outlives the rest of the book. This has, in my opinion, that kind of ending. So I do want to read it because I just need to share it. And I'm not going to promise that it's also not going to make me like tear up for whatever weird reason that joy quote does. But here we go. This is how you change history. This being all the things that went before that I cannot tell you about. This is how you change history. As far as you know, or as far as the you that is me, she's writing to herself. So this whole book is like a report or a document to herself. So as far as you know, or as far as the you that is me knows, the time door, oh shoot. I can't read you that bit. It's too spoilery. So this is how you change history. There's going to be a spoiler here, but I have to give it to you. I just have to give you one small little spoiler, which you can probably assume since I've already told you that this is her writing to herself. So I'm going to skip a lot of stuff, but it's going to feel a little bit seamless. So this is how you change history. I exist at the beginning and the end of this account, which is a kind of time travel, but I hope you'll find a way to contain me. I know how much you've longed for your future to lean down and cup your face, to whisper, don't worry, it gets better. The truth is, it won't get better if you keep making the same mistakes. It can't get better, but you must allow yourself to imagine a world in which you are better. I don't mean to sound pessimistic. I only do because I can see how wrong my choices were. Don't do it like this. Don't enter believing yourself a node in a grand undertaking, that your past and your trauma will define your future, that individuals don't matter. The most radical thing I ever did was to love him. And I wasn't even the first person in this story to do that. But you can get it right if you try. You will have hope and you have been forgiven. Forgiveness, which takes you back to the person you were and lets you reset them. Hope, which exists in a future in which you are new. Forgiveness and hope are miracles. They let you change your life. They are time travel. I know how much you've longed for your future to lean down and cup your face, to whisper, "Don't worry, it gets better." The truth is, it won't get better if you keep making the same mistakes. It can get better, but you must allow yourself to imagine a world in which you are better. You can get it right if you try. You will have hope, and you have been forgiven. Forgiveness, which takes you back to the person you were and lets you reset them. Hope, which exists in a future in which you are new. Forgiveness and hope are miracles. They let you change your life. They are time travel. And this is one of the best things I've read in years. It is one of the best things I've read in years. And I want the whole world to read it so that I can just be like, let's read these lines together. I just want to read it with someone. I want to read this book with someone. I need a book group or something. I need a friend. I need to do a buddy read. Anybody want to do a buddy read? It'll be a reread for me. Yeah, this book is going to be with me for a very long time. Very long. It's so good. I'm just want to hug it. So good. Yeah. Okay. So loved this book. Obviously May is a little bit slow on the reading, but whew, what a read. What a read. I don't know. I'm not like on a reader's high. I don't know what to do with my life anymore. I don't know what I'm going to read next, because what is going to feel the same as this? Nothing. Okay. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. It is, I think, the 20th of May. I haven't read as much as I was hoping I would. That's okay. I am in my classroom. I am going to quickly try. It is a Monday. This seems to be a pattern now with these. I'm going to try and quickly fill you in on some really great books that I have read or reread. I have DNF'd a lot of books as well. That's part of the reason why I haven't read as much as I wanted to, because I keep giving time to books that aren't working for me. But it's also like cycling me through, and I'm getting rid of a bunch of books from my shelves. So it's all good. It's all a process. It's all beautiful. First, though, I want to talk about Friday. So this is Monday. This past Friday, we ended the day watching the middle school presentation of the musical Cinderella, and it was so sweet. It was really, really fun. My kids did a fantabulous job. It was magnificent. And I left at the end of that day. I walked out of my classroom at 3:30, locked the door, turned around, and there were 2 bunnies instead of my normal 1 bunny. And then as I started like trying to take a picture of the two cute bunnies, these two crows gracefully swooped down over my head, not in a antagonistic or aggressive way at all. And I was like weirded out by that. And so I didn't get the picture of the bunnies because the bunnies left, because maybe the crows were coming to get the bunnies, but we won't read too much into that. But then as I was walking down the road, on my way home, after seeing two bunnies and two crows, after watching Cinderella, there were two deer crossing my path. I did get footage of the deer, not very much, but I did get footage of the deer and posted that on Instagram, on Bookstagram, if you follow me there. I'll put something here too, you know me. And then it doesn't end, because usually on a Friday, I either go and get like takeout or I order in for like DoorDash or whatever. And I got Panera, but they didn't deliver Panera. They delivered Panda Express, which is fine. I love Panda Express, except it wasn't what I ordered. And so I contacted DoorDash and they reissued my order and re-delivered my dinner. So 2 bunnies, 2 crows, 2 deer, 2 dinners. My aunt was like, you should buy 2 lottery tickets. I did not buy 2 lottery tickets. Maybe I should have. It was very funny. And the fact that it happened right after watching Cinderella, I was just like, what is going on? What is going on? So that was just a weird, fun little Friday evening that was completely unexpected and completely weird. And it's just kind of a fun little set of synchronicities. Then on Saturday, I came back to watch, because we have a no-cut policy at our school for middle school drama, and all the kids who want to be in the drama can be in the drama, in other words. And so that usually means we have 2 casts. So I came back on Saturday to watch the second cast, which was super fun. Other than that, I didn't do much this weekend but read, which is really good news for us here, because this is supposed to be a reading vlog. And I am just not reading as much these last couple of months. I'm busy. I'm a little bit preoccupied. I've got stuff going on. There's a lot going on at work, a lot of great stuff and a lot of really stupid stuff going on at work. So, yeah, just a lot going on, a lot taking me away from reading. But for whatever reason, this weekend I was able to like settle a little bit, relax a little bit, and like in my mind, relax a little bit, and got some really enjoyable reading done. So I don't have the books with me, obviously, because I'm in my classroom, but let's go ahead and start with 2 rereads that I did, because they'll be really quick to mention. I reread Lolly Willows, and I reread The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and these are both just bizarrely wonderful books. The women in them are so bizarre. Things that stuck out to me reading them side by side were how lovable both of these characters are, and yet also how very frustrating they both are. I had to adjust my glasses. How frustrating they both are. They are 2 women who know what they want and take action. They have convictions. They believe in those convictions, even when those convictions are wrong. And for one of them, it kind of works out, but she never quite feels like she figures out how to be. That's Lolly Willows. And for the other one, she sticks by her convictions even when really terrible things happen, and she still sticks by them. She doesn't seem to learn at all. And so in both cases, these books are both really empowering and wonderful and kind of enchanting, but at the same time, really sobering. And I didn't notice that, or I don't remember noticing that on previous reads. So that was really interesting reading them side by side. I don't know that I would have understood them in that way if I hadn't read them side by side. So really love them. They retain their 5-star ratings. Really, really great books. Okay, then I finished I'm looking at my list. Then I finished Gothic Tales by Mary Shelley. This is my first finished read for Mary Shelley May, and it did not disappoint. This was 2 very short stories. One's 33 pages, one's like 15 pages. One is a story, one is an essay, but the essay is really just a connection of stories. The short story is so fun. It's so fun, and I highly recommend it. It's called The Mortal Immortal. And it is about this dude who falls in love with this girl, and she is kind of wretched. And he bends over backwards to try and win her. She wants him to be very wealthy. And so he takes a position as like an intern or a apprentice to an alchemist who the whole village believes is actually working with the devil, of course. And but he takes the position because it pays a whole lot of money, because nobody wants to help this dude because he works for the devil, right? And so she really convinces him to take this position. He does it for her. She's still really like tempestuous, difficult to get along with, but he gets pushed to the brink where he doesn't want to be in love with her anymore because it's too painful. And his master's life work is in this little vial, and he's been charged to watch it while the master takes a nap. And he's supposed to watch it and wake the master when it turns a certain set of colors, and the master's like, but do not drink it. I mean, as soon as you say that, of course, you know he's going to drink it, but do not drink it because it will kill love. And the dude's like, well, that's exactly what I want. I want it to kill love. I don't want to be in love with this girl anymore. And so he goes to drink it, and the master wakes up and knocks it out of his hand, or he drops it or whatever. He gets excited and only drinks half of it. And the master thinks that he's just picked it up to look at the vial. He doesn't realize he's drunk any of it. And he feels free and invigorated. And he goes to show the love of his life how not interested in her he is anymore, except that when he gets there, he's more in love with her than ever. She's in love with him. She wants to run away with him. They run away. They live life. She ages and he never does. And that is the beginning of the story. It's really, really fun, really good. It's rare to see Mary Shelley as lighthearted as she is in this particular story, and it's just really fun. I imagine, like, this is the kind of storytelling she would do for her children, you know? Like, this is really light and fun and pithy and a little bit fantasy, like a little bit fairy tale-ish at the same time. It's dealing with a couple of really big questions about society and people, of course, because it's Mary Shelley. But really, really fun, really fun. 33 pages, packs a big punch. The end is a little unsatisfying, but that's very satisfying if you follow like my train of thought. The essay was so good. It's called On Ghosts, and it is basically her questioning whether or not her contemporary society is any the better for being so logical and having explained away all the things that cause wonderment or curiosity, all of the unknowns, all of the mysteries. Like, for having been able to solve so many things, is her society any more the better? And then she goes on to like try and wet your whistle by telling 2 stories that she knows from friends of hers that involve ghosts or apparitions, a little bit of a tale of her own. She mentions, like in an if you know, you know kind of way, the dream that she had about the story before she wrote Frankenstein. And she ends with the German fairy tale of the King of the Cats, if you know that story. It's really lovely. Again, very rare to see her as lighthearted as she is in this essay. And it's just really endearing. It reminded me of reading her letters. Like, I really feel like this is a lost aspect of her voice in her more formal literature. Yeah, really delightful, really wonderful. Highly recommend. And then finally, I ended the weekend by reading the rest of the Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd. And this book killed me. It killed me. I think I cried for like off and on for like an hour through the end of the book. Oh my goodness, this book, it is, okay, some people are not going to like this, and that's okay. You do you. But it is the fictionalized story of Jesus's wife. And yes, Jesus is in it, but this is not Jesus's story. This is Anna's story. And it's really the story of women at that time. And if you are interested in it and you haven't heard of it, it's a backlist title. It's old. I came to it late. I've been wanting to read it for 4 years, and I finally got to it. But if you are interested in it, but you're concerned about that for whatever reason, I say start with the author's note at the end. There are a few spoilers, but not very many. And it explains her approach, her reasoning, her respect, and I think that it will answer a lot of questions and allay a lot of fears about reading this book if that is something that you have because of the person of Jesus. And the book is so good. It's so good. It's so lovely to see these women. It's so wonderful to see this found family. It's so heartbreaking to watch the downfall of Judas and to really fall in love with a very human Jesus. We don't see Jesus during his ministry. We see Jesus in the missing years. And he's just a very human version of himself. It is so well written, so engaging, so heartbreaking, so uplifting. Yeah, I mean, half the time it was sad tears. You know what's going to happen, obviously. Yeah, even if you're not a Christian, you know the story of Jesus, I'm sure. You know what's going to happen, but you are there with Anna as it's happening. And it packs a punch. It packs a really big punch. So you're also there with Mary, and you're there with Martha, and you're there with Salome. You're there with a lot of people whose names you will recognize. But in the end, the author, if you don't feel uncomfortable with it, I suggest saving the author's note for the end of the book. But if you do feel uncomfortable, I think you can start with the author's note that is at the end. And when you read it and then read the author's note, it's just like, ah. I don't know. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So lots of good reading. I also DNF'd The Stranger by Camus. I probably will never pick that book up again. Maybe I will. I probably never will, though. I got about 25 pages in and was like, nope. And then I DNF'd The Shadow of What Was Lost. I got 350 pages into it, and I finally was just like, you know what? I want to be the kind of person that wants to read this, and I'm not. So that's that. I need to grade 4 million papers, 10-page papers, 480 pages of 8th grade writing. I've got to do it in the next 40 minutes. Place your bets in the comments about whether or not I can actually get that done. Okay, I'm gonna go. Happy chatting with you, and I will check in again because I have 5 books that I'm almost done with. So definitely we'll have another significant set of reading before this vlog ends. Oh, don't look at my mug collection. Since I was a child, I have had a collection of used cups that never quite make it back to the kitchen. Don't judge. You have your thing too. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Just quickly checking in because after my menagerie of double animals experience on Friday, today, what should run past my office window but a coyote? A coyote? Why? Where did the coyote come from? I've never seen a coyote up here. What is happening? Hello. I'm a little bit of a crazy mess right now, but I have been reading most of the day and I have finished 2 books, so I thought that I would check in and talk about those 2 books. I have a whole stack of books that I want to try to finish today and tomorrow. It's Memorial Day weekend and it's rainy and kind of gloomy, and that works in my favor. So when I want to finish books, it works in my favor. So first, let's talk about The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, which I have finished today. It took a very long time for me to read this, mostly because I did not like it. I know that people really like Rachel Hawkins. This is my second Rachel Hawkins. The first one I read by her was the one that she wrote that was a retelling of Jane Eyre. And I detested that book with intense passion. There's no getting around it. I, in fact, recorded an entire reading vlog about how much I hated the experience of reading that book. And it was mostly because I just really felt like she I know she has like an English degree and all that stuff. I felt like she either purposefully misunderstood the story or tried to write the most offensive thing about it that she possibly could imagine. And it worked. It worked. If that was her goal, it worked. This I read for Mary Shelley May. It is kind of a retelling of Mary Shelley and the summer that she wrote Frankenstein, the summer, the summer where she was at Lord Byron's villa with Percy and Dr. what's-his-face, can't remember his name. And they challenged each other. It was the year without a summer because the volcano somewhere had erupted and it messed everything up. And so it was super cold and dark, gloomy, kind of like today here for me. And they went to go visit Byron, and I don't think they were married yet. I think they had just run away together because he was still married to his first wife. Percy was still married to his first wife. They may have just gotten married, but I really think that they were like kind of eloping. I put that in quotation marks because he was still married. Excuse me. Don't mind the cough. It only comes when I'm talking with excitement. And it's just a holdover from some allergies that I was having a couple of weeks ago. Which, yeah, I guess I'm still kind of having, but they're much better than they have been. Anyway, so I just, when I get going, I start coughing. But let me just keep going. Let me try to get through this. I'll try to calm down and not speak so passionately. But anyway, they spent that summer together, and that's where she had the bad dream that led to Frankenstein, based on conversations that they had been having about science and life and the nature of the soul, and a lot of things that went into Mary Shelley, a teenage girl, writing what is essentially considered to be the first true sci-fi novel. There were things, interestingly enough, written by women that have been written before that can also be kind of proto-sci-fi. But generally we accept as a general rule that Frankenstein is the first one. And so there is that storyline, or those relationships are kind of there with annoyingly similar names. And she being Rachel Hawkins, does this thing that I hate. It's what I hated about her retelling of Jane Eyre, where she takes a kernel of fact and then builds the most grotesque storyline she can imagine around it. And I don't know if she just misunderstands the history or if she truly means to just like break my heart. Maybe she sits down and she's like, how can I break Jenna's heart? Because that's what she does. Yeah, I just really did not appreciate this book at all. I also thought, like, she's also got elements of Charles Manson. She's got her own storyline as well. honestly, I think it's overcomplicated. I think that she doesn't trust her own storylines, and that's why she has to like build in reality that she then purposefully corrupts. It's a very corrupted feeling. Like, it feels gross to read her versions of these things that already exist. And yeah, I said that I would never read another Rachel Hawkins after the Jane Eyre one. I should have stuck to that. I will genuinely never read another Rachel Hawkins after this. As far as a Mary Shelley May book goes, I don't even want to associate it with Mary Shelley. I'm not going to. I can't tell you much about the plot because it's a thriller. It's twisty and kind of weird. Honestly, I think that I got sidetracked. She doesn't trust her own plots, I don't think. I think in her newest one, The Heiress, it is entirely her own plot. And my sister read that. She enjoyed it. I think that may be a better read for me, but I am not going to pick it up. I am not going anywhere near it. So I think that for The Villa, her own storyline of these two women going to write a book together, they were friends and they both become authors, very different kinds of authors, and one's going through a divorce and it's kind of messy and secrets come out and things are revealed and there's a big twist that everyone can see coming if you know anything about humans. If you don't know anything about humans, it may come as a shock to you. It's just, I think that storyline should have been the only storyline. It should have just been a straight thriller with one less complicated narrative. And she should have given her all to it. And it would have been so much better. It would have been so much better. And it would not have made me viscerally angry to read, which would have been great. I hate Reddit. I hate Reddit to the end. Yeah, not a win for me. Not a win. And I can't really blame the book because I already felt I should have listened to my intuition. I already knew that I am not her audience. She is not an author for me. So it's kind of my own fault that I did this and that I feel this way. So let's talk about the other book that I finished reading this afternoon, and that is Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet by Jamie Ford. This was a reread for me. I teach this every year to 8th graders, and I have done this since 2015 with a couple of years off here and there when I wasn't teaching 8th grade. But every time I'm teaching 8th grade, they read Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet at the end of the year. Now, it may not come, like if you live somewhere else in the United States, you may be like, what? What is this book? I don't even know what you're talking about. Why are 8th graders reading it? It takes place in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I live and teach. And so it is a much more common book to teach in 8th grade than you might think if you don't live up here. It is essentially the story of Henry and Keiko. I may be too close to this book as I'm trying to figure out where to start and how to do this. Hi, Lola. Hello. Did you come for some snuggles? Yeah. Did you come for some snuggles? Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I love those snuggles. Okay. You can snuggle me. Am I too excited? Do I seem angry at Rachel Hawkins? Do I seem angry? I think she's jealous of the camera. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Thank you. Okay. Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. As I try to figure out where to start talking about this and how much to say and how much not to say, I suddenly feel like I don't know where to start. I may be just too close to it and I may talk too much about it. So I'll try and edit this to just the facts, ma'am. No, I won't. I won't edit it to just the facts. The emotions are so important for this book. I've read it maybe, I don't read it every year. I don't read it every year. I think this is the 4th time I've read it, maybe the 5th time. It's the 4th time I could recall having finished reading it. I do read bits and pieces of it every year, but to read it start to finish for my own enjoyment, I don't generally do that. But it is a book very close to my heart. And it is, as I was saying, basically the story of Henry and Keiko. It takes place during Japanese incarceration in the Pacific Northwest. So right after Pearl Harbor. If you aren't familiar with that history, a lot of Americans aren't. A lot of more Americans are now in recent years. But if you aren't familiar with that history, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, the United States declared the whole West Coast of the country to be kind of like a military zone. And so they suspended the constitutional rights of Americans who happened to be of Japanese descent, as well as the rights of any Japanese citizen living legally or illegally, but definitely legally within the country. Without trial, they accused and removed to various camps. And when I say camps, I mean camps. They were camping out. They barely had enough facility to keep themselves clothed, covered, kept, fed, bathed, etc. They had no trial. They were formally accused of the possibility of being spies. We're talking infants through 100-year-olds and everyone in between were formally accused of being spies, incarcerated, forced to pledge allegiance to the United States. All of their belongings were stripped from them. Their bank accounts were frozen. All of this stuff. Stuff went down. Read about it. We gave formal apology under Reagan's administration 40 years after the fact. People died. They weren't killed, but people died in these camps because of lack of medical care, lack of proper housing. The elderly couldn't handle the roughing of it. Not having enough food for proper nutrients. Things like that. Food was not purposefully withheld. I'm not making that claim, but many people did suffer from a lack of nutrients. And so it was not a very proud moment, and we tend as a society to try to forget our not very proud moments. All countries do. Well, no, not all countries do. Germany handles this very well. The United States could learn how to handle their not so proud moments from a country that had some not so proud moments, to be very, very underwhelmingly honest. The United States, on the other hand, tries to ignore it. But I live here, and so I get to teach about it, and I do. I do teach about it. And this book, written by Jamie Ford, is written by an Asian American author from the Pacific Northwest, about the Pacific Northwest, a time in the Pacific Northwest that was tough. And I'm looking for it. In the beginning, there is a picture. Yep. There's a picture of the author's aunt on the day that she is carted off with her family. They didn't separate families, but carted off with her family to enter incarceration. For maybe being a spy. It is important to note, and for anybody that wants to get political with me, I will not respond to comments that are derogatory in any way in this instance concerning this information. But not a single person who was incarcerated has ever been tied to espionage or spying in any way, shape, or form. So for years, without trial and evidence, we jailed innocent Americans. And we shouldn't hide that. We shouldn't hide that. We should face that so that it doesn't happen again. Anyway, Like I said, I don't know where to start with this. I don't know. I'm too close to it. I don't know how to not like try to cover my whole curriculum. But there's some background. This is when it takes place. The book takes place there. This is 1941. Ooh. Of all the details I know, that is not one of them. 1986, 1942. This is in 1942 and 1986. There are two timelines, but it's the same people in each timeline with some additions, of course, because people are born. But it has Henry and Keiko. Henry is a Chinese American and Keiko is a Japanese American. They are young. I think they're 12, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. They are young. They fall in love. It's sweet. It's super sweet. They fall in love, but it's a forbidden romance because Henry's dad is very upset about and holds some serious racism towards Japanese people in general because of the way that Japan invaded his country and the things that happened during that. I won't go into that. But again, some history you may want to look into, like at the beginning of the war and before the war as well. So he is very anti-Japanese. He is also afraid that his son will be associated with Japanese people and face bias and racism. He feels that white people will look at his Asian son and assume that he is Japanese, not Chinese. And so he makes his son wear a button that says, "I am Chinese." But Henry is American, right? Keiko is also American, but is being treated as if she is a Japanese possible spy. And so, like an enemy. She's being treated like an enemy. And so they form this relationship where she gets incarcerated and he and some other friends, it's a lovely little found family situation, get her art supplies, check on her, things like that, until she is removed from a local temporary camp to a more permanent and too far away to visit situation. He keeps for her some things that her family wanted her to destroy. So at the time, anything could be twisted into something that made you suspicious. And so Japanese families destroyed many of their photographs, documents, anything that was written in Japanese, anything that where somebody was wearing Japanese dress, pictures of Mount Fuji, anything that could associate them with a love of Japan or a tie to Japan or some kind of alliance to Japan, they destroyed, including family photos and things like that. Her family wanted to destroy those things, but instead she kind of usurped them and put them in a wagon and took them to Henry and said, "Can you put these somewhere safe for us so that we can reclaim them when we come out?" Because she's thinking about, her family history. She's thinking about her identity, where she comes from, and how she wants to save that and salvage that. And he agrees. He hides her photos for her. And when the father finds out, he's very upset because now they have this contraband material in their home. They are Asian, although not Japanese. And he hates the Japanese and he is afraid for his son's life. But he and his son don't communicate very well at all. In fact, the father barely speaks English and the son barely speaks Mandarin, but the father demands they create, it's complicated, they create a verbal block between them. Like they create an impossibility of communication between them, because the father wants his son to be American but also to be very Chinese, and they create these barriers between each other. that really become very instilled in Henry. He really struggles as he becomes a man, because the other timeline is in 1986, where he has a son. He has a wife who has recently passed away, who is not Keiko. Ethel is her name. And he's just had a very, very difficult time, because he learned not to communicate, not to show his emotions, not to feel his emotions. And so he's really kind of far away from everybody. He showed his love for his wife by caring for her in her illness, but she never really knew who he was. And he shows his love for his son by not communicating. He's a very closed off person. And a lot of that is because and I won't ruin anything, but he lets the love of his life go. He never stops thinking about her. He keeps her things safe. He goes to retrieve her things for her eventually, as an adult after his wife dies. A lot of this is instigated by a new person, by his son's fiance, who's like not part of all of the weight of all of the things that he's used to create barriers in his life. She just kind of walks right through them and makes a lot of things possible. And it's really beautiful. But he has lived his whole life, like Keiko brought him to life, and then he lets her go through lack of action, just simple lack of action, and lives in remorse for the rest of his life. And because he lives in remorse for the rest of his life, he just builds walls, because he can't share the one thing that he wants to talk about, which is Keiko. All his life, all he wants to talk about is Keiko. She's everything. And he can't talk about her, so he talks about nothing. He can't be with her, so he is with no one, even if he's physically with people. It's really... it's called Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet for a reason. There's so many sweet moments, and the whole story is very bitter because all of this happens because of choices he makes. Like, there are the things that keep them apart that they have no control over, like incarceration. But when he knows that she's been released, he makes no effort. And there are reasons why she makes no effort, but I won't go into those. He really needed to do it, and he didn't. Now, I will ruin it a little bit for you, because even the kids get to the point where they're like, this is too sad, I can't read on. I will tell you, they do meet again. They do meet again, because he makes some huge efforts to bridge these gaps. And of course, they can't turn back time, but there's this feeling when they do reunite that, like, although all this has passed, they've had these lives separate from each other, that, like, no time has passed. Bitter and sweet, baby. I'm telling you, it's bitter and sweet. So my kids love this book. As you can see, as you can well tell, am way too close to it. Like, there are so many things. We talk a lot about upstanding and bystanding. We talk a lot about history when we read this. We talk so much about parallel characterization in this. Like, why is Henry the way he is? Because his father is the way he is. Why is his father the way he is? Because his father was the way he was. How is Keiko like Jazz? Jazz is very important in this book. Like, there are so many wonderful, subtle, deep little things, but in addition to that, it's just a really good read. And middle schoolers love some sad stuff. They do. But even they get to a point where they're like, are they ever going to see each other again? And yes, but it takes a bittersweet amount of time. And the thing is that it doesn't have to. That's the thing. And I don't think 8th graders get that, but I get that. Every time I read this book, I'm like, I think I said this in my last video too, like, so many books would not exist if people in the books would just talk to each other. Just talk. Just, hey, Keiko, sorry that this thing happened. Can we talk? She would have been like, yes, let's talk. But no, instead, we have 300 pages of angst and sadness, and yeah. I do love this book, though. I love it. I love teaching it. Kids love reading it. And it gives us an opportunity to really talk about cause and effect, and how our interactions with justice and injustice kind of shape who we are, the things we're going to say, and the things we're going to do. It really kind of shows us that there is no individual on this planet that is only one of the things that we're studying. There's no individual on the planet that is only a bystander, only an upstander, only a perpetrator, only a victim. And victim is a very weird word that I use very infrequently. But we talk about how although Keiko is being victimized, she is actually this powerful upstander. And if you don't know what those terms mean, look them up. They're everywhere. They're good ones to know. Yeah, I'm going to stop here so that I can go finish some more books. But if you can't tell, I really enjoyed my reread of this. The kids are about to finish it this week, and I'm excited that I reread it and that it's super fresh in my mind. And I did not like this. So, yeah. And this little one is going to continue to demand my attention. So, yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Hey, actually, it's only been a couple of minutes because I went to go put those books on my stack and I saw this one, which I know that I've already kind of debriefed, but I realized there are some quotes that I really wanted to share from this book. The two that really stand out, there were so many good things in here, but Lola's trying to escape. But the two that really stand out to me from the Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd, near the end, around page 300 almost, there is a point where someone says this phrase, and it really stuck with me: resisting a fear only emboldens it. So resisting a fear just makes it stronger. Feeling it and doing it anyway. And I thought of that when I thought of what I had just said about Henry and not reaching out. I had that, like, I saw the book and then I thought, oh yeah, the book says that, and oh wow, those things, like, I just like it when what I'm reading intersects. And so there was an intersection and I was like, oh, that makes me want to share another quote from this. So then also, she's been away because when Jesus is on his mission, they separate. They're not living as if they're married. And she, because of something that happens in her storyline, actually has to go to Egypt. She has to stay in Egypt to keep herself safe from something. And so she's kind of exiled in Egypt, but then some things happen and she realizes that Jesus is on trial. And so she comes back to try to help him. She doesn't know what's about to happen. She doesn't know that the crucifixion is about to happen. Jesus hasn't been in the story at all throughout this whole time until the crucifixion. And so then they reunite, she gets there, and they happen to interact just a little bit while he is carrying the cross. to Golgotha, and then while he is on the cross, she is one of the women who is there with John. So, John the Apostle. So, she's watching him. They get to interact for a brief moment, when he falls down, but these are some of the thoughts that are in her head, and they were just so, poignant. They were just so touching. So she says, "Don't look away. Terrible things will happen now, unbearable things. Bear it anyway." Just remembering it, I'm kind of tearing up just remembering it. Like, this book made me cry so much. That has happened a lot this month. Books don't usually make me cry at all. No, I guess that's not true. It is rare for a book to make me cry, and I've just read many that have just touched me emotionally in recent months. But several this month, like, what's the time one? The time travel one. I can't remember what it's called, but that one made me cry so much, even while I talked about it. And this one, I don't cry while I talk about it, but oh my goodness, this one made me cry. But anyway, so she's watching her husband, who she's been estranged from for 2 years, who she loves very much and who loves her. She's watching him carry his cross to Golgotha to be crucified. And she says to herself, "Don't look away. Terrible things will happen now, unbearable things. Bear it anyway." And she goes through many more thoughts in her head. They put him up on the cross, and she says, I'm going to read you, I wasn't going to read you all of this, but it goes from, I'm just going to read you this whole thing. It's so good. She says, I've already read this. This will be the third time I read this part, but it's real. Like, it's good. "Don't look away. Terrible things will happen now. Unbearable things. Bear it anyway. Beside me, the others moaned and wept, but I didn't join them. Later, alone, I would wail and fall to the ground and beat the emptiness with my fists. Now, though I choked back my anguish and fastened my eyes on my husband, I will think only of him. I will give him more than my presence. I will give him the full attention of my heart. I would go with him to the end of his longings." This book is a must read. This book is a must read. Do it. Just do it. It's so good. There's so many other quotes in here that I could share, but I'm going to make myself stop. Those were the two that kind of came to me as I talked about Henry and Keiko. I remembered them when I saw the book, and I was like, oh, I love it when what I'm reading intersects, and this intersected, and so I shared it. Now I'm going to go read, okay? Bye. Just wanted to do a check-in. There's a few books that I've read that I'd love to talk about. There is something else that I'm going to talk about that I don't really know where to begin. Maybe I begin with books. So I've finished 3 books. These are the last 3 books that I'll read for May. One is Spitting Gold, and that was a really great read. It is, the basic premise is that there is this, like, okay, first it starts with, like, drops you right into the story. You are dropped directly into the story. And the author does a really great job of showing you, not telling you what's happening. And so things kind of unfold. It's very easy to follow, very easy to understand, but you have so many unknowns that the characters know. And that is a super fun way of telling a story like this. Usually the reader knows way more than the characters know. And in this, the characters know so much more than the reader, and those things get revealed to you as you, the reader, absolutely need them. And that's just really fun and done really well. The basic premise of this is that there's a young woman in her 20s, maybe. She's married to an older man. They've been married for 2 years. He is vastly outside of her social standing. Hello again. It is hours later and I only have a couple of minutes. I just wanted to check in and say I got totally interrupted and never got back to this video, but I haven't forgotten you. So I am probably gonna have to finish it, I don't know, when I get home or tomorrow or something. But this is my life. This is how it usually goes. And this is why I haven't been reading very much, because every time I sit down to do so, I get interrupted. A couple more weeks and it will be summer vacation and I will be very glad. But I did just want to maybe try to finish talking about Spitting Gold. I think I was at a point where I was saying that it's about a woman who's married to somebody who's much higher in social standing. I think that's where I was. And she, she's visited in the very beginning by a woman who turns out to be her sister. And obviously the young woman's husband doesn't know that she has a sister. And the sister is kind of like trying to bully her into taking part in something, to coming back and doing like one more job, one more type of something. Turns out that they used to be like spiritualists. And they would go into people's homes and they would take advantage of their belief and the family's desires to contact their dead relatives and stuff. And her sister is like, we need money. Dad and I need money. So we need you to come back and help us pull off one more of these. So they're going to help this family who believe that their great aunt during the French Revolution was murdered and has come back to haunt them. And she has to lie to her husband to do this, because obviously her husband doesn't know about her past, about how she used to scam people and all of these things, how poor she was or her family. And it's a little bit like Fingersmith, not at all like Fingersmith, but a little bit like Fingersmith in the whole, like, you don't quite know who to trust, what's going on, who's scamming who throughout this book. And it's really fun because it seems like they may have actually encountered an actual ghost. And that's all I'm going to say. It's a really great book. Highly recommend it. I personally really like this kind of story and really enjoyed reading it. The other books that I can talk about are Every Time I Go on Vacation, Somebody Dies, which was super fun. It's got a very interesting unfolding of the story. The timeline is a little bit weird, the way that it's told, and the characters are really fun. If you like the aunties, then I highly suggest this book. It is a full-on mystery, so I won't say much about it, but it's also really about character development, about relationship between us two sisters. Just really lovely, fun, would make a wonderful airplane, airport, beach read, I don't know, cruise kind of read. It's very fun. Good summer reading, solid summer reading. And the other thing that I finished reading, was not quite what I pictured. I think that's what it's called. It's the second book by Leffler. And I can't remember her first name, the woman who I was so excited to read her second book because I loved Reasonable Adults by her. Oh, I loved it so much. It was one of my favorite reads of last year. This one did not do it for me. I've talked about it in past. I've been reading it for a very long time. I talked about it at the end of my April wrap up, and now here I am at the end of my May wrap up, having finally finished it, and yeah, it was not great. It was not great. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So I'm going to leave it at that. I will have kids here in 5 minutes. I do also want to get back to, when I get home, this kind of weird thing. I'll wrap up this video with this kind of weird thing that I feel like I need to talk about. Hi. Okay. Lila's very excited. I just got home. Like, literally just got home. Let me adjust this a little bit. Okay. I feel like the end of these videos... Let's take this hair down. Okay. I feel like the end of these vlogs is always such a hot mess. I don't know what to do about that. Okay. I still don't like where you're situated, but I'm not going to think too much about it. Little bit about it. Okay. So the books that I spoke of throughout the day at school today were this one, Spinning Gold, which I really loved, which I highly recommend. Wonderful, like scary gothic. Every time I go on vacation, someone dies. This one is super fun. This is the one about the sisters, which kind of unfolds the mystery in a really interesting way. And then there is Not How I Pictured It, which is the one about the people who are former child stars or teen stars from a show like Dawson's Creek or something similar to that. And they come together for a reunion as adults, and 2 of them were together and they had a breaking up, and then now they're in forced proximity as they are stuck on an island during filming. They're marooned on an island during filming. And it wasn't as good. It wasn't what I was hoping for, because I loved this author's first book so much. Those are the books I talked about. And yeah, like I said, I feel like the end of these videos is always such a hot mess. But it's story time. It's story time. So I'm going to do something a little bit different than I ever thought I would do. But like, I feel like I'm supposed to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. And this will not apply to almost everybody who watches these videos, or maybe to nobody. Let me just start, okay? So, Monday night, I had a dream. Let me go back a little bit further. Next to my bed, I keep a pen and a journal, and I often wake up in the middle of the night and record my dreams, if I remember them. Because sometimes, fun fact about me, and maybe too much information, sometimes I dream whole poems and I write them down. And I would say about 40% of the time they're actually pretty good, and the rest of the time they make absolutely no sense, and that's fun too. They feel like they make sense until I read them in the morning. And then they make no sense at all. So I'd had a dream, and I woke up and I wanted to write it down, because sometimes I also get story ideas, right? I'm a writer as well as a reader and a teacher, and I write regularly, and lots of times my short stories come from things I've dreamed about. And so I woke up and I wrote this dream down. Well, I meant to write this dream down. And I didn't have I don't know where it was. Like, I always have my journal and my pen sitting by my bed. I must have moved it at some point for some reason, but it wasn't there. And so I grabbed my phone, which was there because I use it as my alarm. So I grabbed my phone and I opened up my email, because my notes app is unreliable. I think I just have too much stuff in there. And so it like glitches frequently. And I was tired and I didn't want to fully wake up because I wanted to be able to go back to sleep. I knew the light from my phone was going to mess me up. I usually don't turn the light on when I go to write in my journal the things that I dream in the middle of the night. And, and so I grab my phone and I open my email and I type out an email to myself, and I should, with the dream in it, and I should have just shut it and gone back to sleep. It would have been in drafts and that would have been fine. Hang on, my dog is chewing up something. Hey, Lola. Okay, can you chill out for a little bit? She's not gonna chill out because I just got home. Okay, I'm gonna take care of her needs for a second and then I'll come back. Okay, let's see if I can do this, finish this. Should have just closed it and gone back to sleep, but I sent it. Like, I put my own email address in it and I sent it. And I put my email address in and it changed it from my email address to the word me, and it sent, and a little thing popped up saying, message to me sent. And then it arrived in my inbox, I saw it, and then it disappeared, all within seconds. And it disappeared. So I was like, okay, it's in my sent items. That's weird, no big deal. It wasn't in my sent items. It wasn't in my inbox. I couldn't find it. And I was like, I had already taken the time to write it down, and now I'm fully awake, and I'm like, do I need to rewrite it? What's going on? So I do a search of all mail for me, the word, M-E. But it autocorrects to the name of someone who I haven't been in communication with for a very long time, who I thought I didn't have any communication from left. Like, I, ages ago, had deleted it all. I thought I had deleted it all, kind of at their request, a very long time ago. And suddenly there were like 20 emails from this person that were pulled up from the years, this is how old this is, from the years 2013, December of 2013, and January of 2014. And we used to send, there was nothing in the emails. They were like one-line replies to questions and questions about businesses that they were starting and things like that. Nothing of interest. I didn't read them that night. I read them last night. But the reason I went back to them last night was not because of the content of the emails, but because we used to send songs to each other all the time. And most of the emails that were still there that for some reason didn't get deleted, that I haven't noticed in like, I don't know how many years, I wanted to know what songs were on there, because they were just files that had titles, but no artists. Like, there's files of songs. Probably highly illegal, definitely highly illegal, but that's what we did a long time ago. I pay for Spotify now. Don't come at me with your righteous indignation. Your copyright law, etc., etc. I wanted to know what the songs were. I remember a lot of the songs that we exchanged, but over the course of many years, lots and lots of songs, I didn't remember them all. And so I was looking at the titles of these songs and I couldn't place them. And like, none of them. I couldn't place any of them. And I'd say of the emails that popped up, probably 2/3 of them were just a song or several songs. And so I opened up Spotify and I started opening each email, listening to each song last night. And I was overwhelmed with a sense of missing this person who I haven't talked to in such a long time. I'm not much of a stalker. But it occurred to me that this person kind of was a stalkerish sort of person. And I'm pretty visual here in the world. And so if perhaps, and this is like the most random of possibilities, but it just occurred to me last night that maybe I should say, hey, you should reach out because I'd love to talk to you because we haven't talked in a very long time. And this feels like a really weird thing to do. It feels like such a weird thing to do, such a weird story to be telling, especially on this platform. And probably like, there's no way that this person is watching this video. But at the same time, like, I kind of felt like I was supposed to do this. And I tried to ignore it all day long. And all day long, it just kept coming back to me. And so here I am. And I felt like I really wanted to talk to this person. We haven't talked in such a long time. And I would just really, really, really love to talk to this person. And for some reason, it just popped into my head, and unrelentingly so popped into my head, the completely illogical thought. Unrelentingly, I had the idea in my head that I acknowledge is fully illogical. There is zero chance that this person is watching these videos. But here I am, because the idea would not leave me, to the extent that today, when I finally had a moment in my classroom, I was like, okay, I need to make this video. And like 3 times I tried to make this video today because it was just in my head. And I kept telling my head, this is weird. But the thought was like, nope, say hi at the end of this video. So here I am saying hi at the end of the video. And I suppose in a way it does kind of make a little bit of sense, because I've talked a lot in this video and in recent videos about how, and this just occurred to me on my walk home today, so it's not a fully formed thought, but like I've talked recently in a lot of these videos about how many books would not exist if people would just communicate. And so here I am communicating, and I doubt you see this. I doubt you will ever see this. And if you do, how weird is that? Yeah. I don't know. If you've made it to the end of this video, welcome to my weirdness. Welcome to my weirdness. I'm not usually this odd. If this is the first time you've watched one of my videos and you made it all the way to the end of this super long video, good on you. And if by some odd, weird, universe twist of fate reason it has made any sense to say hello at the end of this video and to invite this person to reach out and let me know what you have been up to. Like, I know nothing about your life at this point. Do it. I would love to hear from you. If you are not this person, I am not inviting just random people to reach out to me and tell me how they are. In a comment, fine, but please, no, nothing else. This is a very specific message for a very specific person who is probably not watching this video, but I can't get it out of my head that I need to do this. So I'm doing it. Here I am, being completely irrational, doing this thing, saying hello to this particular individual who isn't watching this video, but might be. I don't know. I don't know your life. And this is the weirdest end to a video I've ever done. This is maybe the weirdest thing I've ever done. So there it is. There it is. Yeah. Let's go read.